Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, we've reached that time of the year when it's time to dig up the parsnips ready for Christmas. Now, in all honesty, I always like to leave the parsnips in the ground till we've had a frost, because when the ground freezes, it basically changes the starch in the parsnips, so basically the sweeter. However, it's Christmas in a couple of days' time, so I need to get them up and and ready for that. And unfortunately, we've not had a frost yet, but. Anyway, what I want to do is I want to show you the parsnips that we planted in the early part of the year. And if you remember, we had there was 4 different varieties that I tried. One of them failed altogether. So basically, I've got 3 in the ground, and the 3 that are in the ground, I planted them in 2 different ways. One was in the parsnip propagator that I made earlier in the year, and the others were sowed directly into the ground. Now, if you want to look back at how I did this ready for next year, if you look on, I'll put a link at the bottom anyway, but if you look on the April part 4, that was when I was planting the seeds into the propagator and explaining how to do that. And if you want to look at how to sow them into the ground, that was done in April part 6 of this year. So that'll give you an idea. But anyway, there were 4 different varieties of parsnips that I grew. The first one came from Wilco's, which was called Javelin F1. The second one was called Albion, which is another F1, and that came from Thomas and Morgan seeds. The third one came from the Urban Garden collection, and that was called Arrow. And the fourth one was White Gem. The variety was called White Gem from Sutton Seeds. Now, for one reason or another, the White Gem seeds just didn't germinate. And if you remember, I actually did it in 3 different ways. Sorry, I apologise. The first one was in the propagator, which I showed you in April part 4. Then I also chitted some seeds in some small trays, and I chitted all 4 varieties. And I also planted them directly into the ground. The ones that went directly into the ground, basically I let them grow, and then where there were any spaces, I put in the seeds that had been chitted to to make up the spaces. So I don't really know where they are, to be honest with you, but I've got a reasonable idea. But I can show you later on when I dig them up. All of the ones that were in the propagator, which was really the acid test, those were planted in the long side, the far side. So what I'll do is I'll show you in a moment me digging those up so you can see what they are. For the ones that were grown in the propagator, the things that we're looking for is the roots being twisted or broken or anything like that, because that's the problem that you get with parsnip seeds. That's why they're so difficult to transplant, and you should always, or they say you should always grow them outside. Now, what you can do is get around this with the propagator, as I've shown you in the April part 4. Where basically what you do is you can transplant it from the propagator into the ground without disturbing the roots, and that's the important thing. There's one tapping root that goes down which basically forms into the parsnip, and if that's bent or twisted or broken, basically you end up with stubby or twisted parsnips. There are other things that can cause this, stones in the ground, things like that. If the tapping root hits an obstacle on its way down, that can also cause problems. But what we're looking for are uniform, sort of long parsnips, ideally about that long, sort of about 14-15 inches long. That's an ideal size, and really you want them about sort of 3 inches across at the top. That's an ideal parsnip size. If you get a little bit bigger, what you can do is you can get like a woody core down the middle of them, which isn't so nice. They're nice and sweet when they're about 3 inches across and about that long. That's ideally what you're looking for. So let's go and dig some up and let's see what results that we got.
Okay, so now we've had some frost, this is a really good time to start digging up your parsnips. Now, always dig your parsnips up with a spade, because if you use a fork, if you imagine for parsnips like that, if you put your fork in, what you can do is as you're pulling it out, you can damage the actual parsnip itself. So, what I suggest you do is start at the end of the row, and I've got no idea what these parsnips are going to look like, but we'll see how we go. You want to put the spade in about 6 inches away from the parsnip and drive it in right into the ground by rocking the spade backwards and forwards. You want that spade to get as deep in there as you can, and then just by gently pulling the spade back, you're going to pull out the earth with the parsnips in, like that, and then just drop it on the ground. And what you'll find is your parsnips are all in one piece. Obviously, you know, you might lose the end piece, but there's a good example of a parsnip. Here's an even better version of a parsnip, like that. So I'll just dig another couple out, and then I'll wash them off and show you. So again, just drive your spade in about 6 inches, 5 or 6 inches away from the parsnip. Using your weight, just pull back, and then you'll find that the parsnips will come straight out the ground. There you go, so that's not damaged at all. I mean, the spade didn't get anywhere near these parsnips there when I was digging them out. So, and there's one, there's a slightly smaller one. Now that the frost has been on them, you'll find that the parsnips are so much sweeter than they would have been before.
So, I've just taken about 15 minutes worth of video showing you how to dig up parsnips and all the rest of it, and the camera battery died on me and it's lost the video, and it's one of them days. It's blowing a hoolie out there at the minute. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to dig any more parsnips up. What I'll do is I'll just show you what I've got and just very quickly explain. And what I'll try and do is patch in some footage from last year just to show you. But basically, digging up parsnips, always do them with a fork. And what you need to do is come back about 6 inches away from the top of the parsnip, and you can always tell obviously where the leaves are coming out of the ground. Come back about 6 inches or so, and what you want to do is push the fork as far into the ground as you possibly can do it. Ideally, if you imagine the top of the fork there where you put your foot, you want to get that about 4 or 5 inches from the ground if you possibly can do, and then basically sort of, you know, so you're lifting the parsnip up out of the ground. That's the way to do it. Don't try and sort of go in too close to it, because the likelihood is you'll hit it with the fork. And what you want to do is try and get under it and sort of pull it up out of the ground. That's the best way to do it, you know, without damaging the parsnip. So we've got a few parsnips here, and basically, if I can just show you what we've got now from the parsnip propagator, which is the first one I dug up. The first one I dug up was that. Now these are the Albion F1 variety from Thompson and Morgan. And as you can see, that's a pretty good parsnip. It's got a bit of a twist in the middle, but you know, I can soon peel that and sort it out. So that's the first one. Now, what I was looking for with the parsnip propagator was to see if the root was damaged at all. Now, there is a little bit of sort of signs of damage there. Now, that could have been caused by a number of things. It could have been the propagator. As I was putting them into the ground, you know, the root might have got damaged, or it could have been it hitting a stone in the ground or something like that. So, you know, this is most certainly not an acid test. But anyway, that was the first one. That's the Albion F1 from Thompson and Morgan, and that is really an ideal size parsnip. You don't want them too big because they get a bit woody. And as I say, you know, you don't want them too small because they're a bit too faffy to cook and stuff. But that really is ideal. That peeled and chopped in half. With some honey, pepper in the oven, about 40 minutes on about 180 degrees, or gas mark 6, 7 for about 40 minutes. That'll be absolutely fantastic. So that was the first one that come out. Next one that come out was that one. Again, these are all the Albion F1 variety. Now that's definitely showing some root disturbance there. So that's possibly one that was caused by the propagator. The next one was this one, which is possibly the biggest one. Again, the root was a little bit sort of tangled there, and the fourth one was this one, which is stubby. That's obviously hit a stone or something like that. Now, The reason I don't think that was the propagator was the fact that the propagator is about that long, so that actually happened inside the propagator. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. Possibly it's a stone or something, I don't know. But anyway, those are all the F1 hybrid Albions from Thompson and Morgan. So they're pretty good. In all honesty, in general, I've had considerably better years than this. These parsnips aren't too bad, but the size of them isn't particularly good, and I was expecting to be a bit bigger than this, to be honest with you. So in past years I have had considerably better crop than this, but as it goes, you know, it's not too bad. So Albion. The next one was the Arrow, and this is the Arrow here. Now these ones were grown straight into the ground. As you can see, that's pretty good. It's not particularly wide, but it's sort of reasonably long, thin. You know, not a bad parsnip at all. There were a few others, quite small ones, to be honest with you. These were in the these are all the same variety. Now the Arrow comes from the Urban Garden collection. Now that one again is showing root, as though the roots hit something. Now this was not done in the propagator, so that's in the ground. So if you can imagine comparing that to say that one, for example, as you can see, it's reasonably similar apart from the size. So that one's one that came out of the propagator, that's one that came out straight out of the ground. So as I say, you know, it's not an acid test to say that it was the propagator that caused that. However, what I will say is, from a size perspective, I mean that's the biggest one that went straight into the ground. That's the biggest one that came out of the propagator. So as you can see, these got a really good start in the season, and that's where it's quite critical to get a good crop. So, you know, normally my parsnips are about this size, to be honest with you. Now, as I say, that came out of the propagator. This was straight in the ground. So as you can see, you know, the propagator's winning at the minute. So that was Arrow. The next one was Javelin, and Javelin didn't do too badly. This was the biggest Javelin that came out. Now this is the one that went straight into the ground again. These were all watered and sort of looked after exactly the same. So you know all of that's the same. And I've got a couple of Javelins out now. The Javelins came from Wilco's. The seeds were only 59p or something daft like that. These are really cheap seeds. And to be honest with you, out of all the parsnips, these are the ones that smell the most. And if I smell those and these, there's a marked difference in the smell. These ones smell stronger, so therefore I'm assuming they're going to taste better. The Albion ones, there is a smell. You know, there is a reasonable smell to these, but on a smell test, these ones most certainly win. These are you know, smelling strongly of parsnip, so I would imagine these will be the most flavoursome out of the lot. And these were the ones that came from, as I say, Wilco's, and it's called Javelin F1. These seeds were I think about 60p, 59p, something definitely like that. So that's them. These ones were the Arrow from the Urban Garden collection. These were about £2 something a packet of seeds. So yeah, and then these Albion ones are the Thompson and Morgan seeds, and these were I actually got these cheap, but I think normally they were about £2 or so a packet. So Wilco seeds, you can't really go wrong. They're, you know, I can smell them here just by holding them in my hand. I can smell the parsnips. These ones don't smell quite as strong, but you know, but from a size point of view, I would say, you know, this one here, that one came out of the ground. I've only got one of the Albions out of the ground that wasn't in the propagator. So, you know, from a size perspective, you know, they don't look amiss really. You know, it's obviously that's the biggest one. You know, that I could find in the ground. Basically, I just felt in the ground to see which one was the biggest one, just by putting my finger in and trying to size there. But from a size point of view, I would say the Wilco's Javelin and the Thompson and Morgan Albion F1 are, from a size point of view, pretty much the same. However, from a smell point of view, and I'm assuming the flavour's going to be the same, the Wilco seeds win the competition, I would say. So Wilco's Javelin F1 would be the seeds that I would recommend. Now, as I say, always put in a number of different seeds. What I always do is always put at least 3 varieties in the ground. So what I do is I get 3 different varieties, put them in the ground, and sort of plant them on top of each other, and then at least one of the varieties will take. What you do find, I don't know why, but I've planted rows before. So I've planted a row of one variety, a row of another variety, and a row of another variety, next to each other. So exactly the same conditions. I put the plastic over the same, I water them the same, they go in the ground the same, everything. And you'll find that one row will come really strongly, another row you'll get the odd one coming, and another row, the third row, you'll get nothing at all. Don't ask me why. And if you do that for a number of years, there's no pattern to it at all. Now, for some reason, some seeds germinate better than others, dependent on the weather conditions. So what I always do is, if you put 3 different varieties in one row, and put 2 or 3 rows, however many you want in, but in every row, put plenty of each of the different sizes of seeds. So you've got 3 varieties in each row on top of each other. You will guarantee that you'll get 3 or 4, however many rows you put in there, full of parsnips. That's the best bit of advice I can give you. Don't touch the seed with your hand. Always tap them in with get the seed packet and tap them into the drill. You only want them about half an inch, 15 millimeters below the ground, and then sprinkle some fine dirt on top of them. Water them. If it's a bit earlier on in the season, put a bit of plastic. If not, just leave them to it, and they will take about a month to germinate. So if nothing comes up, don't worry. They do take a while to germinate. As soon as they have germinated, keep them well weeded in the first few months. That's quite critical. Always make sure that you pull all the weeds away from them so that they're clear to grow. Unless it gets really dry, I wouldn't suggest you water them. I think this year I watered these twice during the season, and apart from that, you don't really need to worry about it. But what I'll do now is I'll show you a bit of footage of sort of what I did earlier in the year, so you get an idea of what I did earlier on. As I say, the results this year are brilliant, and I think that's pretty much down to the weather. We've had a reasonably sort of dry season. I mean, when you consider all of the root crops, really, the potatoes, the parsnips, the beetroot and stuff like that, they've all done okay this year. None of them have been brilliant, to be honest with you. I've had considerably better potato crops. I've had considerably better parsnips than this time of year. And I've had better beetroot as well. So I think because of the weather conditions we've had this year, even though I've watered and done all that kind of business, I don't think they've been as good as they have been in the past. But as I say, I can't complain. I've got where are they gone? I mean, when you consider I've got a row of these for 59p, can't complain, can you really? And and they always taste so much better. The best bit of advice, if you're going to cook parsnips, always dig them up the day before you're going to cook them. Let them dry out in the house overnight, and then cook them that day. And I don't know why, but they just taste that much better. As I say, it's better to give them a frost first. Leave them in the ground till you've had a frost, because that tends to sweeten them up a little bit. But if you're roasting them, which is for me the only way to cook parsnips, all you need to do is top and tail them, peel them obviously, and then cut them into, that one I'd probably cook whole, that one I'd probably cut into quarters. What you can do is you can put just oil on, or you can drizzle some oil, honey over the top as well, a little bit of pepper, put them in a greased tray in the oven, nice warm oven, about sort of 180 as I say. Keep your eye on them, but typically I'll leave them in there for about sort of 30, 35, 40 minutes, and then eat them, basically. So anyway, that's the parsnips, what we got this year. Okay, so that's the all of the cells filled now. All I've done with this is I've put in a very fine potting compost. You don't want anything that's too coarse like Miracle Grow, something like that. What I've used is this kind of clover compost, which is really, really fine. It's great for seeds and stuff like that. Right, so as you can see there now, what I've got is 2 or 3 seeds in each one. That one's actually got 4. but I've got 2 or 3 seeds in each one of the cells, and all I'm going to do now is just with just a little pinch of compost. I'm just going to cover those seeds over. Okay, so onto the parsnip propagator. As you can see, these ones really it's time for them to go in. On some of them I've got a couple in each, or in fact I've got 3 or 4 in some of them. So what I'll do is just pull out the weaker ones and then plant them in the ground now. So I'll just show you me doing that. Okay, so you can see kind of what size the hole needs to be if I just wrap that back around. So basically I need to make a hole kind of that big, and you can see the little taproot coming out the bottom there. That's the bit that I don't want to break. So what I'm going to do basically is, with the trowel, make a circular hole, obviously bringing out the dirt. Now it helps if the ground's wet. Now we had a bit of rain last night, so what I've made now is a hole pretty much the same depth as that. Now what I can do, I do this in 2 ways. What I can do is drop that down the hole, yeah, and then basically just by pulling round the plastic, I can just sort of release that. And so now if I just show you that, there's the parsnip plug in the hole, and obviously at the same height. So all I need to do now is just gently push the dirt into the hole like that, round the parsnip. Okay, so now I'm going to just tap the seeds into the drill, and I'm basically going to be as much as I possibly can do, trying to get them around 3 or so inches apart. You need to be patient when you're doing this. Okay, so as soon as you've got the seeds in, what I do is get clumps of soil like that, and I just break it up in my hand so you've got a really fine tilt over the to make sure that you absolutely bury the seeds. So basically all the bits that your rotavator didn't pick up, or when you were digging, if you just break them up into your hand like that and put it over. What you can do is, rather than doing this, is get some potting compost and put that over the top, you know, just to sprinkle over the top, because basically what you want to do is just cover the seeds. You don't want to cover the seeds by much, you only want to cover them by about 1/2 centimetre or so. That's what I always recommend, just to make sure that they're actually covered. And then just basically go up the row like that. So you've got any lumps of soil that you have like this, just basically break it up in your hands over the row. And what I do is, when I'm raking the ground, is any lumps like this, I always push them over to one side, because I know I'm going to be doing this. So when you're raking over, if you've got some lumps, don't worry about that. Just rake the lumps over to one side, and then you can use them to break down to over the row like this to bury your seeds. Okay, and there you go. So I'd say ideally that's probably the best size sort of parsnip. That one's slightly smaller, obviously, and these ones are quite big. But these won't be, you know, until they start shooting in the spring, these won't be woody at all. You know, these are, you know, still tender. So I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions that you've got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody, all of the subscribers and viewers that have given me support over the last 12 months and previous years with the channel. I really do appreciate all of your support. And the only thing that leaves me to do is wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll see you in the next 2016 for more episodes of Jim's Allotment Garden.